Hi, my name is Heather Harris. I am the EVP over Sales and Solutions. Today I'll be showing you our joint interest billing application inside of NetSuite. The first thing you do to set up your joint interest billing inside of NetSuite is you come here to your Revenue JIB menu. Select Setup, and then come down here and select Owners. I'm going to open up an owner card that already exists to walk you through that. You assign a name to your owner. Then you would link your owner to a customer inside of NetSuite as well as a vendor inside of NetSuite if both are applicable. To net your revenues versus your expenses, you would check the revenue/JIB net box. Next, you would go back up to your Revenue JIB menu, go to Setup, but this time you're going to select Allocation Decks. I'll open an allocation deck to walk you through. You would assign a code to your allocation deck and a description to your allocation deck. Then you would select the owners that are applicable to this allocation deck. You would assign their expense allocation percentage and their revenue allocation percentage. Please note, it does not need to be the same in both expense and revenue. So for example, it could be 75% of expenses allocated to this owner and 25% of revenue. We do make sure that your allocation percentages do total 100%. And you can have as many owners as applicable for each deck. Next, you go back to your Revenue JIB menu, back to Setup, but this time you'll select Well. Again, if I open a well that I've already created to walk you through it, you'll see you assign a name to your well. You can have parents. You assign an allocation deck to your well. If you are non-operating, you would have an ownership percentage, and you assign a lease to a well. Please note we also have a lease hierarchy, which you can link to properties if that is applicable for you. What this is doing is when I select a well on a transaction inside NetSuite, it will default this information for me. So let's go look at some transactions that have occurred next. If I click on Revenue/JIB menu again, but this time I'm going to select Transactions, and I'm going to come down here to Revenue JIB Entries. When I select those, you'll see different entries that have occurred in my demo environment. You'll see I have both journal entries as well as vendor bills. So first I'm going to take you into a vendor bill so you can see that we are using the native screens inside NetSuite. We just have added some additional fields. So just as you would expect from any vendor bill, you'll notice I have my vendor bill numbers, reference numbers, vendor information, amounts, etc. So in this case, you see my amount is $7,250. If I scroll down to my lines on my vendor bill, you'll notice that I'm coding this vendor bill to this GL account. And you'll notice I have these additional fields. So I have a well field, a lease field, a property field, an allocation deck, and a Rev JIB allocation. So the minute I pick well 2, it defaulted my lease, property, and allocation deck. Once this transaction is processed, it will assign a Revenue JIB allocation to it. You as a user can go through this and look at it and edit it as necessary, but it will default based on how you set the system up. So in this example, you will see that this is my JIB allocation. So it listed each of my owners, my allocation percentage of how it's allocating this, along with the associated dollar amount. Please note that you can add an additional memo field here on the JIB memo. That way, if you would like that to print on the JIB itself so you have a different description, you are able to do so. If needed, you can click Edit, and if you have the proper security, you can edit owners, percentages, descriptions, amounts, or remove lines. Now, if I go back, this was a vendor bill, so you saw how this looked like a regular vendor bill. But let's go back to the listing, and you'll also see we have journal entries. If I open the journal entry screen, you will notice this is a standard journal entry screen But again, down here, you have your well, allocation, lease, property, etc. And you notice you have your allocations. Just like you saw before, I can drill back on those allocations and see the applicable percentages. Now, once all these transactions have been input, the next thing is when you're ready, you can actually process your joint interest billings. So if I come here to process revenue/JIB, you'll see I have different parameters for creating my joint interest billing. I have date parameters. I can do it for one or all of my owners or a selection of owners. So I'm just going to come here and I am going to change my filter because this is a demo company and just go back in time here. I can select Abbott, for example, and you see it's pulling up one transaction. I can assign the transaction date and I can assign a document number. Once I do that and hit submit, if I have multiples, I can just select certain items. So I have the select, I have the mark all, unmark all. And when I hit submit, it actually goes out and produces my actual documents. So remember, we had checked that net revenue/JIB. So it will produce either the AR invoice or AP invoice for each. Thank you for joining our demo. Please call us if you have any additional questions or need additional information.